I think that the Criterion dungeons are really interesting content, and I wanted to hear what other people thought. So if you've done the Criterion or the variant dungeon, please tell me what you think about it. Please tell me your thoughts. I wanted to talk about the variant dungeons first. Usually when dungeons are added to the game, they are content that nobody cares about. The hardcore player does the dungeon for their roulette. They barely enjoy it. It's just let me get through this shit in 10 to 12 minutes and get it done. People don't care about dungeons, right? Casual players don't care about dungeons. Hardcore players don't care about dungeons. They are just a means to an end. They are just a way to get your tomestones. So I was very interested to see a type of casual dungeon that is very, very easy. And while the content is not it's not super fun compared to normal dungeons, the decision making and path building that you make with all of the different endings made it way more interesting, and it definitely helped that for the first time in human history dungeons had a good reward. I also like that not only can you do them solo, but they're kind of interesting to do solo. Honestly, I think that the variant dungeons were a win. But the real thing that I want to talk about is the Criterion dungeon and the Criterion Dungeon Savage, okay? Because I'm going to say it. The Criterion dungeon is the most interesting piece of content added to Final Fantasy XIV since Ultimate was first added in 2017. I think it's the most interesting piece of content added to the game in 5 years. I genuinely do. The first Ultimate came out at the end of 2017, and we're now at the end of 2022. And finally, we have a new type of content that is really fucking interesting. Because, okay, so we'll talk about the Criterion first, right? There's good things and bad things. The Criterion dungeon, in my opinion, has some of the best encounter design that we've seen recently in FF14 outside of Ultimate Encounters, and there is a reason for that, and I thought about the reason for quite a while. The reason is because there's no bullshit filler, okay? So if you go to P5S, P6S, even P7S, I would even say P8S, every single one of those fights has filler. They have repeated mechanics. They have a core concept of the encounter, and then they build a couple of interesting mechanics around it, and then the rest is repeats or filler bullshit, right? Because they need to fill a 10 to 12 minute encounter. But what they did here in the Criterion dungeons is the encounter is only 4 to 5 minutes long, right? So they made 3 interesting 4 to 5 minute boss encounters with almost no repeated mechanics whatsoever. So they took a concept, they built on the concept with those couple of interesting mechanics, and then the fight ends. There's no filler, there's no wasted time, there's no nothing. It condenses what is interesting about raiding, which is figuring out cool set piece mechanics and doing the dance, and it condenses it down into a third of the time. So that is the reason that I fucking love the Criterion dungeon boss design. I think it's great. Also, finally, hard 4-man content. Is this the first time there's been hard 4-man content in the game? I think it might be. It might be, right? Also, in Extreme specifically, I think Rathalos. You're right. Yeah, sorry, Rathalos. This might be the first piece of 4-man content that I think could be considered quote-unquote pinnacle content for 4-man content, personally. I also like that specifically in Extreme, the checks are very lenient. Right? The checks are very lenient. You can clear all of the fights in Extreme with like 4 deaths if you want to, no problem. You can rotate all of your reses and still meet the checks with absolutely no problem in Extreme. Okay? No worries. But the fights are really mechanically intense because they're mechanically identical to Savage. I genuinely believe that in terms of mechanical complexity, the final boss is somewhere around 3rd turn of Savage. I genuinely believe that. I think that the final boss of Criterion and P7S are mechanically similar in complexity. I would put them at a similar level of difficulty. But because the timer is so condensed down, the prog cycle is so condensed down. And I think that's sick. I think that they didn't pull punches with the design of this. So, I have a lot of good things to say about Criterion. I may be sucking Criterion's dick, and that's because Criterion's great, and it deserves a bit of it, you know? Criterion is fucking great, okay? And then we go into Savage. Savage is mechanically identical to the normal version of the Criterion dungeon, but most of the raid damages Most of the raid damages hit between 25 and like 50% harder. The tank busters fucking slap and the ads are terrifying. And with the punishment of not being able to... Essentially, you can't have somebody die a single time before the end of the final fight, right? Because if you do, you just don't meet the checks. The bosses also have extended HP by like 5 or 10%. It doesn't make the enrages super tight still, which I think is fine. You're not going to have enrage issues if you just don't die. That's just how it is, and I think that's fine. But what it does mean is that you have to be very mechanically consistent to get through it, and I think that's fine. And here's the problem, though. Is Savage actually needed or is Extreme enough? I think that Savage is great. I actually loved the different type of challenge of Criterion Savage because mechanically it's identical, right? But it tests your consistency. It's a major consistency check. If you have a player die, they're done. And if that happens before the last 2 minutes of the raid, you just reset because you're not going to get through it with 3 people, right? So it's a really good consistency check for your group. There is a problem, though. The rewards are dog shit. What the fuck were they thinking? Making the Savage rewards worse than normal. What were they thinking? Bro, I get my book from clearing Savage, and I don't even use it because the rewards are so shit. Savage is completely one and done. Here is what they should have done. In my opinion, here is what they should have done. Savage should have been an alternate gearing path for alt jobs. Do I think they should have given gear? I think they could have, but it might have been too much work, and I understand that. I think what they should have done is made it so that you can trade a book for an upgrade item. If you want to weekly lock the books as a result of that, sure, whatever. But I think that you should be able to trade a book for an upgrade item. A left or a right side upgrade item of your choice. Because still, in the year of our Lord 2022, players are still throttled from gearing by twines and coatings. Left and right side upgrade items. That's still the biggest gearing throttle for every player. Because you need so many of them. So releasing this piece of content that offers a bit of a different challenge and offers players an alternate path to get one of those. And for Savage players who do their weeklies every week, it offers them a path to get more of them. I think it could have been nothing but a good thing. I don't see any reason why they don't start adding these upgrade items as rewards for alternative Pinnacle content. Because I don't think they should be locked so heavily. It was so fucking funny when I found out that you can get an earring or a single Materia 10. Bro, I would have preferred if we didn't get the Materia 10. Just, like, I would have preferred nothing. Genuinely, I would have preferred nothing. When I went into that page and I saw an earring, a housing banner, and Materia, I was expecting to be able to trade that book for, like, 10 Materia, 20 Materia, maybe 50 Materia. Something that makes you feel like your effort investment was worth it. Because what did I get from that? I got the equivalent of doing a single A rank. Nice. 100% worth it. So the content itself was great, but the rewards are dog shit. And I would have thought the developers would have learnt by now that if you release good content with shit rewards, you are disincentivizing at least a percentage of the player base from doing it because they only care about rewards. They don't care about doing it for the fun of it. I did it for the fun of it, but not everyone is like that. A lot of people want to be rewarded for their hard work, right? And if you are not rewarded for your hard work, there is a chance that you might be less interested in doing the content. It turned out that while you don't need BIS to clear, if you're going in at 610, it's a bit grief. Going into Savage, that is. It's a bit grief. And this released on week 8. And there are some people that just aren't BIS that would want to tackle this and are putting themselves in a worse position in doing so just because they got unlucky. What I spoke about before about the gearing being an issue, I still stand by it having done this. Because I think it probably is doable sub 620. It probably is, but I don't think you should. I don't think you should do it sub 620. I think your group should be at least 620 when you go into Savage. And obviously every item level that you have below BIS is making your life harder for no real gain. So yeah, I definitely stand by the fact that I think that the fact that you require high item level for this, and it was released at the time it was, is actually minus points from the dungeon. So The good is the content. The bad is the release schedule and the rewards, in my opinion. Because I genuinely believe that the Savage Dungeon was the most interesting challenge I've had as a player in a long time.